This is going to be a tough video to do, but I have decided to do it. So I'm going to start by telling you a story about me and my dad. When I was a little kid, just 2 or 3 years old, I used to have terrible nightmares. And I've always had very vivid dreams, but they were especially bad at that time. I would see monsters, I'd see them repeatedly. I even gave them names. There was the muddy monster, there was the white monster, there was a black monster who had red eyes, and I remember his name. So I was afraid to go to sleep. And during this time, my dad, who was a physicist, he'd done a PhD in physics at Cornell. He was there as a student with Carl Sagan, in fact, if you know who Carl Sagan is. He was teaching a course in astronomy at the same time. And because I was afraid of going to sleep and seeing these monsters, every night he would take me out at bedtime. He would wrap me up in a blanket and walk with me around the neighborhood. The neighbors got to expect to see him out there with me. And he would point out the constellations to me and have me look up at the stars so that I would go to sleep and they could put me to bed. My dad passed away about 3.5 days ago from Parkinson's as I'm recording this. And I reminded him about this a couple of weeks ago. I told him that I knew he didn't have to do that. He could have said, part of growing up is dealing with your monsters. Let's go in your room, let's look around and make sure the monsters aren't there and you can go to bed. But instead, when I was afraid of monsters, he took me out to show me the stars. You might think this has nothing to do with music, but it has everything to do with my relationship with my dad and how it affected my whole approach to life and music. I still remember that very clearly. I remember specific nights going out with him, even though I was such a little kid, because I felt so loved and safe. So I told my dad when I talked to him about this a couple of weeks ago, that I believe those early experiences have really stuck with me my whole life and have really helped shape me into who I am. And the way he approached me in my music was the same, so generous and loving and enabling. He really made me feel that whatever I wanted to do as a musician or just a person, I could accomplish. There was one really important day that I remember looking back when I feel that my dad planted a seed that helped me to become a confident musician. I was in the big suburban with my family. I had 3 siblings and my 2 parents were there. And we were driving to the mall to do Christmas shopping, and we had Christmas carols on the radio and we were singing along. I was harmonizing. I was making up parts that were not the melody, obviously, but that went along with the melody. And when we got out of the car and we were walking into the mall, my dad made a point of kind of pulling me aside, and he said to me, "You're the only one in our family besides Mom who can do that. None of your brothers and sisters can do it. I can't do it. It's hard to do, and you're just doing it all on your own. That's a really unusual ability that you have, and you should really develop it." And to me, the fact that he said that was huge, because I was 3rd out of 4 kids. My siblings were all very, very smart, and they still are. My dad obviously is very smart, and he was a very gifted amateur musician. My mom did study music. She did a master's degree in vocal performance and was an opera singer. But to me, the fact that my dad would single me out and say that when I was about 6 or 7 years old made me feel, this is something I'm really good at. This is something that could be my thing that I do. And that was a very formative, important experience for me. My dad was that way with everything I did in music, though. Whenever I gave a recital or played as a concerto soloist or won something in a competition or did not win something in a competition, he was always there and always so supportive, and he was quietly supportive. Other people would come up to me and say, "I just saw your dad." He didn't say much, but he had this huge smile on his face, and I can tell that he is so proud of you. My dad was a very fine amateur pianist himself. He played a lot of very difficult music. He just hated to perform. He didn't like to get up and play in front of people, but he played the Chopin Fantasy and the third and fourth ballades. He played a bunch of Beethoven sonatas. He played Debussy L'Île Joyeuse. He played Brahms Intermezzi, so he was a very advanced pianist. He just did not enjoy performing himself because he was so quiet and humble. But that was one thing that he would always say to me is, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get up there and you play from memory in front of all those people and you never have a problem. And so again, because I knew how brilliant my dad was, he filled me with this confidence that I could do it, that I could do what I wanted with my music. Whatever I say about my dad and really both of my parents, as far as how much they encouraged and helped me in my music, it's going to be insufficient. But music is so often a family endeavor. Anybody who's studied the Suzuki method will tell you that the entire family really needs to be involved raising a musical child. I also have friends who were the only musician in their family. They are out there and I am so impressed by them, because to do that on your own without the network of family members who know what you're supposed to be doing and how to practice and how to get good at your instrument is very hard to do all by yourself. But for me, music definitely was an important family thing. And the time that I remember very specifically realizing how indebted I was to my parents and my family for helping me to become a musician was when I was in my early 20s and I was doing my doctoral degree at Juilliard. And somehow that time in my life, living in New York, made me realize that I personally could never have done it without the support of my parents. Other people probably can, but for me, I don't think I have enough fight in my personality. I wanted to do it, I loved it, I was driven, and I was very passionate about music. But I think if my parents had said, no, we want you to be an attorney, no, you need to go to medical school, or even, no, music is a waste of money, we're not going to help you get through college, I know that I personally could not have done it. So in a very real sense, not just genetic, I owe who I am to my parents, and my dad was such an important part of that. I'm so grateful that I got to spend a lot of time with him in the last few weeks. We listened to a lot of music together. Some of it he remembered so clearly. Other things he was a bit foggy on. But I'm so glad that I got to say everything that I wanted to him. And I got to thank him for everything he did for me. And it may sound a little corny, but I did tell him that I hope that just how he helped me to focus on the stars and forget about the monsters when I was trying to go to sleep. I hope that now he's in a place where he can forget about the monsters he was battling at the end of his life with his Parkinson's, and that he can contemplate the stars. Thanks, Dad.